welcome back to Lawtorials. My name is Elelion, head bar exam coach here at Lawtorials, and today we will be covering the governance of contracts. So this is more just around the general principles for contracts on the UBE. So yes, this is also only for the uniform bar exam, not for state specific stuff. So if you need state specific, I'm not covering state specific, so just bear that in mind as you watch this video. And then the way it will work is, after I give you the overview of those principles, I'm just going to go into a nice, relatively easy quiz, just to kind of test your knowledge, because as part of my one-to-one bar prep program, Journey to Attorney, one of the elements I have in there is game nights. So that's like a group element where we have these bar exam game nights. They are so much fun, and it's a really good way to test your knowledge early on rather than waiting till the last minute and realizing that you kind of know the law, but you don't know how to apply the law, which is a very big thing that you need to know. There's a big distinction between knowing the law and knowing how to apply the law and knowing how to spot the issues in the law. Okay, so we're going to do that, and then stick around till the end where I'll just break down the answers and why each answer was what, and maybe just give a few tips as to how you can remember and how you can distinguish certain things on the exam. Okay, so now that we're ready to get into it, just grab yourself a pen and paper, or there may be a link in the description box where you can just click on it and obtain the digital version of the same quiz. Okay, so let's get right into it. Okay, so when you're dealing with contracts on the UBE, the first thing that you really need to ascertain is what kind of contract is it. And the reason you need to do that is because if it's a contract pertaining to goods, you need to know that it's the UCC Article 2 that applies. And if it's a contract pertaining to services or anything else, then it's common law that applies. And the reason that's so important is because it will affect how the fact pattern of the question goes, right? Because if you have to apply UCC Article 2 rules, then you're going to have a different outcome, especially when it comes to things like the mailbox rule and different things, consideration. There's so many different elements that the UCC Article 2 replaces when it comes to common law. So when you are dealing with a contracts question, if you see anything relating to the sale of a good, right? And I wish I had slides for you. I mean, in my program, I have slides. In my program, I need to stop doing this. But anyway, in my programs, I have slides. So when it comes to UCC Article 2, that is what will apply anytime you see the sale of a good. So if it's like somebody is selling that plant behind me, or selling the ring light, or selling the microphone, anything like that is a tangible good, a movable tangible good, is going to fall under the UCC Article 2. Okay, so when you're reading the fact pattern, if you see that Bob was selling his camera to Rosie, straight away your bleepers or whatever, your blinders or something will go off in your head, or should go off, that says rules of UCC Article 2, and continue to apply the law that way. When it comes to services, or even the sale of like land or real estate, obviously there are other elements, but you are going to apply common law as opposed to UCC Article 2. UCC, by the way, stands for the Uniform Commercial Code. So you just want to make sure that you're differentiating between what kind of contract it is, so you know what to apply. Okay, so another type of contract that you will see on the UBE is what is called a mixed purposes contract. Now, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's literally a contract that has mixed purposes. So on one hand, there may be a sale of a good, but then in that same contract, there's also some kind of exchange of a service. So when you come across a fact pattern that has a mixed purpose, there's a sale of a good and a service in that same contract. In order to determine which law will govern that contract, you have to look and see what is the predominant purpose of that contract. So is it mainly to do with the sale of that good, and the service is just kind of like an add-on as part of the contract, or is it mainly to do with the service, and then the good is just kind of like, oh yeah, and also I'm going to throw in my my little watch in there that was like $20, or anything like that. So when you have a fact pattern and you can see that it's kind of mixed, like analyze. This is where your lawyering skills come in. Analyze and figure out what is the predominant purpose of this contract? And you may find that in the facts, by the conversation that the parties have had. You may have it, something may point out and say, okay, well, actually, this is what is the predominant purpose, and then that law would govern. So if it was the service, it would be common law, and if it was the good, it would be the UCC Article 2. And that's it for governance. I just want to add that in some cases, there's what's called a divisible contract, where the services are separated from the goods. So some states will treat this as a divisible contract and apply common law to the service and the UCC Article 2 rules to the goods. So this may be a good point of analysis in essay questions with such scenarios, but the general rule is the predominant purpose test applies. Okay, so we're going to go through the questions now. There's only 5. They are very simple. And if they're not, just let me know. And if they are too easy, also please let me know in the comments. But we'll go through the 5 of them. I'm not going to give you time in between each question to answer. So, I mean, in life, you don't often get time. You know what I mean? People don't always give you time. So it's up to you to make that time for yourself. Okay, in other words, just pause the video when it gets to that part, and then if you need time to think, and then move on and carry on from there. So we're going to go straight into question number 1. So question 1, if you and I had a contract where I would buy your yellow curtains from you, what would govern that contract? Would it be number 1, UCC Article 9, number 2, UCC Article 2, number 3, common law, or number 4, the Contracts Reform Act 2001. Okay, so those are your options. Please don't rewind and go back to when I just said it at the beginning. And we're going to move on to question 2. Question number 2. If I was to agree to paint your entire house for you, what law would govern that agreement? Would it be number 1, UCC Article 9, number 2, UCC Article 2, number 3, common law, or number 4, the statute of frauds? Okay, question number 3. And don't forget to pause if you need more time. Just, Question number 3. If you and I had an agreement for you to buy 7 types of paint from me and then paint my whole house with 9 rooms, 2 living rooms and a dining hall, how would you determine what would govern the contract? Would it be number 1, by determining the underlying purpose of the contract, number 2, by determining the previous purpose of the contract, number 3, by determining the predominant purpose of the contract, or number 4, by determining the original purpose of the contract? See? Okay, this wasn't so bad. 2 more to go. Stick with me. Question number 4. If you and I had an agreement for you to buy 7 types of paint from me and then paint my whole house with 9 rooms, 2 living rooms and a dining hall, what would govern the contract? Would it be UCC Article 9, number 2, UCC Article 2, number 3, common law, or number 4, the rule of perpetuity? And lastly, if you and I had a contract for you to buy my house from me after painting it, this is a whole separate contract, what law would govern? Would it be number 1, UCC Article 2, number 2, UCC Article 9, number 3, common law, or number 4, the Mixed Contracts Act 2001? Okay, and that's it. Well done for completing the quiz. If you are still here, congratulate yourself. Give yourself a pat on the arm or the back, whichever you prefer. And celebrate yourself, because with each question you're doing, with each piece of law that you're learning, you're getting one step closer to passing the bar exam. Okay, everything counts. Everything helps. I know people say sometimes that, oh, this stuff doesn't help, but actually it does. Okay. Obviously, you cannot neglect the main core activities of doing practice questions, MBEs, real MEEs, and real MPTs, but this stuff also helps. Okay, take it from me. Okay, so we're going to go through the answers and I will explain shortly with each one. Okay, so number 1, the answer to if you and I had a contract where I would buy your curtains from you, what would govern that contract? And the answer is number 2, UCC Article 2. Now, it's pretty clear. Curtains, they're goods. tangible, movable things. So that would be the UCC Article 2. No brainer, straight into it. Bing, bang, bong. Okay, so we're going to move straight to number 2. And if you have any questions, by the way, please just let me know in the comments. I mean, people really do watch these videos, but I just never see any comments, so I don't really know. So if you want to leave a comment, I will respond to anyone who leaves a comment, okay? So when it comes to question number 2, if I was to agree to paint your entire house for you, what law would govern in the agreement? And the answer was number 3, common law. Why? Because it's a service. Painting your house is a service. So UCC Article 2 is not going to govern painting a house as a service. And I guess a good way to remember it, and so I also did throw in a few random answers. UCC Article 9 for if you're a retaker or if you're just familiar because you're familiar with secure transactions, which anyway, secure transactions is governed by UCC Article 9. So when it comes to UCC Article 9, I used to get the two confused. And so I don't want you to get them confused. So when it comes to sale of goods contracts, nothing to do with secure transactions, it's UCC Article 2. And maybe a good way to think of it, it's kind of like, so UCC Article 2 is to do with goods, right? Because it's like you see a good, right? And you have 2 eyes. Yeah? Yeah. Most people have 2 eyes. So it's UCC, 2 C's are 2 eyes. Article 2. Following? Is it? I don't know if it's really going to stick, but it's something. UCC, Article 2. UCC something that you really like. Article 2, UCC with your 2 eyes. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but let's just move on. But that's a good way to remember. That's goods. So UCC, those goods that you like. UCC, those pair of shoes, and there's 2 of them with your 2 eyes. UCC Article 2. Okay, anyway, let's move on from that. I really tried to make it stick. But then you've got common law, which is services. So I think maybe services are kind of common. Maybe that's a good way to remember it. Like people commonly get their cars serviced and stuff like that. Anyway, question number 3. If we had an agreement for you to buy 7 types of paint from me and paint my whole house, da-dee-da, how would you determine what would govern the agreement? So the answer was number 3, by determining the predominant purpose of the contract. Now, the thing with this is I did put in some like other trick ones. Don't go with just because it sounds right. Don't go with something just because it sounds right. Like, I feel like the original purpose or the underlying purpose kind of sounds right, but the answer is the predominant purpose. That's the test. So that's what you need to keep in your mind. Don't get distracted, because on the MBE, they will put answers that look so accurate. They look so right. And you're like, oh my gosh, I've never heard of that. Let me pick this one. I must have missed it. But don't fall into that trap, okay? So go with what you've learned. Go with what you studied for all that time before the exam, okay? Don't get thrown off by these distractors. Okay, so number 4, if we had an agreement for you to buy 7 types of paint from me and paint my whole house, da-dee-da-dee-da, what would govern the contract? And I've put number 3, common law, because the reason why is because even though you're buying 7 types of paint from me, you might think, ooh, 7 types of paint, whatever. That's a whole lot. But then if you look at the service involved in that, that's the painting of 9 rooms, 2 living rooms and a dining hall. Which is more predominant? Buying 7 buckets of paint or painting a house of 9 rooms, 2 living rooms and a dining hall? Clearly that's the predominant purpose of the contract. You could still get paint from somewhere else technically, although that would be a breach. Okay. But then painting the house is a service that needs to be done. The only way for it to be done is if you do it, right? So that's the predominant purpose, and therefore it would be governed by common law instead of the UCC Article 2. And finally, question 5, if we had a contract for you to buy my house from me after painting it, whole new contract, whole new day, what would govern? And again, the answer is number 3, common law, because it's not a good. it's buying of a property. And yes, there'll be other things that play into it when it comes to real property, but this is just a simple contracts governance question in this scenario, and common law would rule because it's not real estate is not a good, so common law would apply to real estate. And then obviously you've got the statute of frauds and all the other stuff and what have you when it gets to that level. So it's quite basic. Just remember these as you go through problem questions, practice MBEs, to make sure you make that distinction, because as you continue to learn the rules for contracts and the UCC versus common law and the mailbox rule and the offers and acceptance and all of that good stuff, you need to know the rules. So common law is what is like standard, but then where goods are involved, the UCC Article 2 comes in and replaces those rules. So you just need to know when you need to fill that in with the UCC Article 2 rules instead of common law. Because if you don't, you could end up with the wrong answer. And you don't want that. And I don't want that for you either. So that's it. I said I wanted to keep it short and sweet. So if you have any questions for me, you can comment. Let me know how many you got right. If this was too easy, let me know. If it was a bit too hard or the questions were a bit too weird, let me know. It's the only way I'm going to be able to continue to make videos that actually help you. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next video. Lortorial.